Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and I will be your astrologer for today's video covering astrology in May 2023. There are two big events this month, a lunar eclipse and the coronation of a king. If you'd like to book a personal reading with me, DM me, or you can book online on my website at thecoolcrone.com. The lunar eclipse on May 5th will take place in Scorpio at 14 degrees 58 minutes at 1:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. This lunar eclipse is ruled by powerful Mars and Pluto, both of which are weakened at this point. Mars is in the sign of its fall, greatly weakening its effect, and Pluto is just recently turned retrograde. So this eclipse may be about disappointment of some kind. We are also in a Mercury retrograde, which is sextile Saturn, so people may be changing their minds about someone in authority. Donald Trump, a British king, or someone else in the news? I have a separate video all about the lunar eclipse. It's up on my channel now. Be sure to check it out, and I will link it at the end of this video. On May 6th, there will be a coronation for King Charles and Queen Camilla in the UK. Now, you may snicker that I made the coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla a big event astrologically. But the coronation happens the day after the lunar eclipse, actually only 12 hours after, and is in fact tied to it pretty tightly. Let's talk a bit about Charles and Camilla's coronation. First, we'll look at the chart of Charles versus the lunar eclipse planets, because it's that configuration of planets that's going to affect his coronation the most. Here is his chart. Now, if you'll notice, the planets in red in this middle ring are the eclipse planets, and the planets here in the more inner ring are Charles's natal planets, the planets that were there when he was born. The planets for the eclipse greatly impact the 10th house for Charles. Now, anyone who has their moon in the 10th house will be put into the public eye sometime or several times in their lives, and they will be well received by the public. Charles has his moon opposite Mercury and conjunct the North Node and sextile Uranus. Now, in the past, he has had some controversial news written about him and has become known for eccentricity and his unusual approaches to things. For instance, his gardening theories, his beliefs about ETs, his open-mindedness about religion, just to name a few. But all of these have proven to be way ahead of their time. Having his natal moon conjunct his north node indicates a well-known and highly visible destiny. This day has been destined for 1,000 years, and he will be feeling the full weight of it. Surprisingly, he will carry it off without a hitch, having already had the Sun, Mercury, Uranus, and Vesta pass over this position prior to the eclipse. Jupiter, that's this guy here, the planet of kings, will be conjunct his natal moon on the day of his coronation. So Charles will appear every inch the king. But Venus, that's this one here, is fast approaching his natal Uranus at 29 degrees Gemini. 29 degrees was the position of the earlier eclipse in Aries. This will sextile his moon and trigger a response to the eclipse in April. Look for sweeping changes to the monarchy as soon as the crown is on his head. He will feel more confident than ever, especially with his queen, Camilla, by his side. And the changes he makes may have more to do with things that he has wanted to change since he was much younger, as opposed to the changes that are called for in the present. And lest we forget, I would be remiss if I didn't take into consideration the fact that Charles is being crowned during a Mercury retrograde period. When Mercury is at 8 degrees of Taurus, which is opposing the moon of the eclipse, and conjunct his natal moon in Taurus, and opposing his natal Mercury. This means that all those changes that the king invokes just after his coronation may be undone in fairly short order, or that the changes made just prior to his coronation may also be undone. His reign will be short or truncated, or he will abdicate to William rather than having a long and illustrious reign like his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. I'm not saying he will step down this year, but it is not Charles' destiny to rule for the ages. I'm afraid he will be known as the longest living heir in England's history, and more as the Prince of Wales rather than King of the Commonwealth. Charles was not born during an eclipse, even though the North Node is conjunct his moon. He is fulfilling his destiny, but more, he is paving the way for his son William, who was born under an eclipse, to take over and redesign the monarchy forever. I'll look at William and Kate's chart in a future video, so for now, let's still focus on Charles and Camilla. Now let's take a look at Camilla's chart against the lunar eclipse. Here is Camilla's chart. Now Camilla has a lot of action natally in her 12th house, so she's more comfortable in the background. Unfortunately, several planets of the eclipse, several major planets of the lunar eclipse, are traveling over her 10th house, bringing her front and center in the eyes of the public. Now, I feel that Camilla has learned to grin and bear it. After all, she has Leo rising with Saturn and Pluto in the first house. Not an easy combo to have, by the way. Camilla has an incredible sense of duty, which is Saturn, and this is compounded by Pluto, making her a very sensual, sexual creature who also obsesses over her responsibilities. She and Charles share this Leo rising, so I would imagine their fights are quite spectacular. Actually, though, she and Charles make an excellent couple because they both have Pluto in Leo in the first house. Their moons are in sextile and their suns are in trine, so in day-to-day life they get along really well and they quite enjoy each other's company. And at this stage of their lives, it would be quite unthinkable for one to be without the other. This is a powerhouse couple who will defend each other to the world as well as fight with each other when the situation demands. I feel that Camilla is actually quite strong, perhaps stronger than Charles, so she most likely wins most arguments, but don't get me wrong. She is not stronger outwardly. She would never upstage Charles. She has inner strength because she knows deeply who she is, and when Charles is unsure of his footing, either in his own psychological view or when it comes to his position in the world, she can see things around him more objectively and yet still color her opinions with the value system of their social circle. It may not be total reality, but it really helps Charles to have someone who understands him so well. Their strong compatibility always helps him. I doubt these two ever take for granted that they are together, that they are happy, and that they are accepted by their country and the world. Back to the eclipse impact. Now, Camilla will weather the eclipse much better than Charles. She will be the rudder and keep him on course. But make no mistake, Charles means to make changes. He is a Scorpio. You have seen the minute, minor changes he made prior to the coronation, but wait until you see what he does after. The moment of the coronation for Charles is when the gods anoint him, choose him, and make him truly king. And from that moment on, he will be acting with the assurance that the gods endorse his every act. Also, as a Scorpio, he does not feel the need to broadcast, share, or advertise his intentions ahead of time. He's very happy to keep things to himself or share only with Camilla, his partner in all this, and then spring it on the world at the most opportune time. Now keep your eye also on the Duke and Duchess in the USA. Their behavior has not gone unnoticed by the king, and unlike his mother, Elizabeth II, again, he is not afraid to ruffle feathers. Even though he misses his son and wants to see him back in the fold, the connection to Harry in Charles's chart shows that the path of their relationship will be unpredictable and involve a lot of sudden and public changes. Okay, Now back to the month of May. On May 8th, Venus will enter the sign of Cancer. Now, this is not the sign of rulership for Venus, but she does love being in Cancer. Here, Aphrodite can be motherly and bring gorgeous food to the table, along with warm blankets to put on your lap. It may be springtime, but the nights still get chilly, and Venus in Cancer is there to keep you warm. Venus in Cancer can also be super sensitive and intuitive. Don't forget all that psychic energy. So we need to be careful with loved ones and not let a callous tongue or a careless remark cause hurt feelings. This may result in a cold shoulder or a whopping fight that you won't forget or be forgiven for anytime soon. On May 15th, Mercury will station direct at 5 degrees Taurus, 51 minutes. Mercury in Taurus is a bit unforgiving, especially when retrograde, Taurus being a fixed earth sign and all. Taurus wants results and is not about to change their mind, so having Mercury here in retrograde has meant many misguided conversations and pronouncements of wrong opinions. Hopefully, once it goes direct, there will be just as many mea culpas and apologies. But this splits up the month nicely into two halves, the full moon lunar eclipse half and the new moon half. Mercury will be retrograde for the former and direct for the latter. People who are sensitive to this Mercury retrograde, and that would be people who have dominant planets in the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, should be aware that the shadow period for this retrograde will last until the 31st. I would venture that since the new moon this month has a direct motion Mercury, we may see some things resolved that seem to have blown up since April 21st. After Mercury stations direct, we will be seeing many things go back to what they were prior to the retrograde. So don't waste your energy getting all bent out of shape over things that don't matter. Use your energy for something positive. The chart for the day that Mercury actually begins forward motion is a little scary. We have a grand cross between Mars, Pluto, and the north-south nodes. To me, this means something that is fated will be confronted, perhaps fought over. Definitely, there will be a standoff. But this opposition has been in force for a while, so this is most likely the same standoff that we were speaking about from the eclipse. When people speak of this event, they will mark it in history for all mankind. I don't know what it is. I just know that it will be very important. On May 17th, Jupiter will enter the sign of Taurus, and it will remain in the sign of Taurus until mid-May the following year. I told you all of this in my Astrology 2023 video, so some of you may already be aware. Jupiter expands things and represents opportunities and luck. When he joins Uranus in Taurus, he will sextile Saturn for quite a while. Jupiter represents evolution, progress, and success. So there will be opportunities for changes, which is Uranus, that will bring us evolution, progress, success, and luck. Jupiter will emphasize our choices and help us gain what we want. There's a great potential here for lots of us to succeed under this transit. This will be in effect until the end of August 2023, so you have plenty of time to make this work for you. Venus will trine Saturn. I didn't put dates up here because this is going to last from May 5th to the 16th. In addition to Jupiter sextiling Saturn, Venus will trine Saturn for almost 2 weeks, making Saturn too happy for its own good. Here we will see practical arrangements made to benefit women, using technology and communications, expanding and enlarging plans that were previously in place. So this is quite exciting. Look for things in the news to be announcing that there is something using technology and communications that is going to benefit women. And it could also be based on things that were already in place. So that's very exciting news for women. Do that. Now let's talk about Pluto and Jupiter in May. Pluto is retrograde all month, and Jupiter will be in square aspect to it, meaning that whatever Jupiter is revisiting will be expanded and made bigger and more exaggerated. Now, Pluto in its retrograde is going to be passing over degrees where it already was before. probably over the last 6 months or so. So it's going through everything that's corrupted or weakened and digging it up to expose it to the light of day so that we can correct it in some way, whether that is governmental agencies, the government itself, um, big corporations, anything that might be corrupted or just too old to be good anymore. Pluto will revisit, and because Jupiter is in this square aspect, it will expand or magnify what's going on. So even if something was discovered before, this means that Pluto and Jupiter could bring it out into the open in a more dramatic way, making it possible for people to get excited enough to take action on it now. Hello, indictments. All right, let's move on to May 19th, where we have a new moon in Taurus at 28 degrees 25 at 11:53 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So just about noontime on the 19th. There are a lot of nice aspects to this new moon, so it will be a good time to clear the decks and be rid of all that old Mercury retrograde energy to start fresh with whatever you want to accomplish. Now, we are still in Mercury's shadow period, so if you have astrological points that I mentioned earlier in those fixed signs, you may want to put your new venture for the new moon in June rather than this one in May. Now, on the new moon, she will sextile Mars in Cancer. So remember that Mercury is direct now. The moon is exalted in Taurus. So expect that this will have a very different feel from the eclipse that we experienced at the beginning of the month. Where that lunation was filled with heavy, obsessive Pluto energy, this one is different. While there are still very strong powers at play, these energies will play out overtly, bringing conflicts and negotiations into the spotlight. The lunar eclipse was ruled by a weakened Mars and Pluto. This lunation, ruled by Venus, which is in Cancer, has Mars, also in Cancer, in opposition to Pluto. The two bad boys stand off against one another. Conflicts will be very intense and could point to military engagements, terrorism, or even gun violence. Now, let's hold love in our hearts that it does not manifest into any of those things and that we just have power struggles between parties or countries. Now, one bright note is that this does not line up into fixed signs. Mars is still in Cancer, a cardinal sign. This means that there is a chance for resolution here, a chance to understand what needs to be protected on a personal level and what needs to be transformed on a global level. We may see a standoff of epic proportions that could be negotiated away by a hero. A sacrifice will have to be made, but the situation can be resolved. These planets are both squared by Jupiter, forming a T-square, and unfortunately, Jupiter will enlarge and expand the conflict. The South Node in Scorpio stands across from Jupiter, so this will be a global conflict, a standoff that has a feeling of destiny, and most likely one that we have seen before in our history. So look for that echo to history in whatever is happening during this new moon. Fortunately, the Sun trines Pluto, which is also out of sign, but extremely helpful in bringing together the right people to resolve the issues. However, Saturn is square the Sun, demanding that rules and decorum be followed, and Jupiter sextile Mars means there's an opportunity for a king or someone very important to influence the situation, possibly making it bigger and bringing the world's attention to the problem. And I was just thinking, what a hoot if King Charles actually stepped in and was part of the negotiation team. That would be great. Now, usually a new moon in Taurus would be lovely. Taurus being the sign of exaltation for this luminary. But this one is tortured by a T-square and a possible grand cross by Pluto, Mars, Jupiter, and the South Node. Mercury is sextile now, so this goes a long way towards clearing up any misunderstandings or miscommunications from the retrograde or the eclipse on May 5th. In other words, we have another chance at communication. Jupiter is conjunct the North Node. This is an optimistic feeling foretelling brighter days ahead and a bright future for those who are aligned with it. Since both of these bodies are in the sign of Taurus, there could be an increase in food products in some way, either improvements to our supply chain or ways of growing and processing food. This may continue for the entire period when Jupiter is in Taurus. The ruler of this new moon is Venus. Females will be protected and protective. A lot more effort by females to protect other females and our country will be seen. Also, we may have a new start of monetary products or monetary systems at this time, maybe another form of crypto or something new altogether. It's all going to happen right around the time of this new moon. All right, so let's move on to May 21st when Mars will enter Leo. So during Mars in Leo, we will be unafraid to strut our stuff. Big egos will abound. And for those of you who also have a Mars in a fire sign, you will make it clear about who it is you really love. Looking forward to that. Then on the next day, the 22nd, the Sun enters Gemini. So the Sun moves from very staid, very predictable, very reliable Taurus into flirty social Gemini, where learning is cool and delving deeply into a topic is not. The heaviness of the lunations of the month are forgotten as the light and airy energy of Gemini takes over. I love this time of year. My mother was a Gemini. I really vibe with Geminis, and I'm very happy to embrace this energy because I'm also an air sign. Then on the 25th, Venus will sextile Uranus. So there will be sudden infatuations and opportunities to fall in love. And those who fall will fall suddenly, very quickly. This is the transit of things being magnetically drawn together. It may feel like kismet. It may feel like it's meant to be, or it may feel like it's just a bolt from the blue. It just happens. This can also be great for financial opportunities or to make changes in your love or money. The whole month will be under this influence due to the eclipse falling on the Scorpio-Taurus axis. And we round out the month with Sun square Saturn. On the 27th, the Sun in Gemini will square Saturn in Pisces. We end the month with caution. This is a time for us to look at facts. Also a time to be serious about what those facts mean. Again, the whole month relates to money markets and systems. Pay attention to the facts in front of you. Work with others. This is a wake-up call. Don't live in dreamland. Nothing wrong with being realistic. So that's it for my May 2023 astrological forecast. Please check out my video on the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is up on my channel now. Thank you for being a subscriber. You are a subscriber, right? If you are a subscriber, please look for my posts about what you want to see in membership, as I'm getting ready to launch that as well. Thanks for watching.